Step onto an oil rig in the middle of the ocean, and the first thing that hits you isn't the view, it's the sound. The deck hums and shudders with the constant rumble of diesel engines. The clang of tools rings out from somewhere above your head, and the rhythmic thump of heavy machinery pulses through the steel beneath your boots. Somewhere deep below, high-pressure pumps hiss and groan as they push millions of gallons of seawater and drilling fluids into the earth. The air smells faintly of salt, steel, and machine oil. But if you catch the breeze from the right direction, another aroma drifts in warm, rich, unmistakable. You turn your head toward it. Bacon. Definitely bacon. But not just bacon, there's something else too. Fresh bread, still rising in the oven. A faint smokiness that might be steak. And it doesn't make sense at first. You're surrounded by nothing but sea in every direction. An endless sweep of blue and gray horizon. There are no corner stores here, no restaurants, no late-night takeout runs. The nearest fast food joint is hundreds of miles away, and even the nearest port might take hours by chopper or days by boat. Out here, the only food you get is the food that was loaded onto the rig the last time a supply vessel pulled alongside. Once those crates, boxes, and freezers are stocked, that's it, no quick grocery trips if something runs out. And yet, against all odds, 3 times a day, plus a special midnight meal for the night shift, the galley doors swing open and the scent of a proper feast rolls through the steel hallways. Eggs sizzling on the griddle, slow-roasted pork shoulder falling apart under its own weight, pans of lasagna big enough to feed a football team. And this isn't a rare occasion. It's the everyday reality. The people making it happen? A small, relentless team of oil rig chefs. They work in shifts that sometimes blur into each other, starting prep before dawn and scrubbing down long after most of the crew has eaten. They keep the coffee pots full at all hours, make sure everyone from the newest roustabout to the rig manager gets a hot plate, and somehow pull it off in a kitchen that's compact, constantly vibrating, and limited to whatever ingredients can survive the journey from shore, and then survive weeks in storage. Out here, food is more than just fuel. It's comfort. It's routine. It's the one moment in a long, exhausting shift when people can sit, talk, and remember they're human. It's a morale booster when the seas are rough and the work is dangerous. In some ways, it's the heartbeat of the rig, a steady reminder that no matter how far you are from land, you can still have a taste of home. Cooking offshore isn't like running a restaurant. It's part logistics puzzle, part endurance sport, part culinary art. You're not just cooking. You're predicting appetites, managing supplies like a military quartermaster, and keeping dozens of moving parts in sync, all while dealing with weather delays, unpredictable supply drops, and the fact that everything you make needs to taste just as good on day 28 as it did on day 1. And if you think oil rig food means soggy cafeteria slop, you're in for a surprise. Let's start with the numbers, because they'll make your jaw drop. A typical offshore oil rig isn't just a workplace, it's a floating, humming little city planted in the middle of nowhere. On any given day, there might be 150 to 200 people living and working on board. And here's the kicker, the work never stops. Rigs run 24/7, which means crews work in shifts around the clock. You've got one group waking up just as another is finishing their shift. Some heading out to the decks under the blazing sun, others starting their day at midnight with a headlamp and a toolbox. For the galley, the rig's kitchen, that means there's no such thing as closing time. They're cranking out 4 full meal services every single day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and what's known as midnight lunch, or mid-rats, if you want to sound like you've been there. Mid-rats is for the night shift, but you'd be surprised how many day shift folks swing by for a snack just because the smell of fresh cooked food drifts through the corridors. Do the math and it's staggering. More than 0 individual meals in a single week. No breaks, no slow days. No, hey, it's Sunday, let's take it easy. The ocean doesn't care if it's Christmas morning, New Year's Eve, or the middle of a 3-day holiday weekend. The pumps keep running, the drills keep turning, and the kitchen keeps serving. Out here, there's no pause button. And pulling that off? That's a skill all its own. On land, if you run out of eggs or fresh greens, you pick up the phone, call the supplier, and it's restocked by lunch. On an oil rig, there's no delivery guy on standby. Supplies arrive every 2 to 4 weeks, usually by boat, but sometimes by helicopter, and always in bulk. When that shipment comes in, it's a full crew effort hauling boxes, shifting crates, and carefully slotting everything into the galley's maze of fridges, freezers, and dry storage rooms. Once the last case of vegetables is stacked and the supply hatch shuts, that's it. Whatever's on board has to last until the next drop. And here's another wrinkle most people don't think about. Everyone out here is burning through calories like a furnace. This isn't cushy office work. A lot of jobs on the rig are physically demanding. Lifting, hauling, climbing, welding, all while staying alert in an environment where mistakes can be dangerous. That means the average crew member might need 0 calories or more in a day just to keep their energy up. Multiply that by the number of people, and you start to understand why the galley feels less like a kitchen and more like a never-ending production line for hot, hearty meals. And here's the thing, they don't just keep meals interesting, they make them good. When you're 3 weeks into a rotation and staring down another plate of frozen peas, A great oil rig chef knows how to work a little magic. Those peas might get tossed in sizzling garlic butter with a sprinkle of paprika and black pepper, turning something bland into something that feels like a side dish worth eating. A tin of canned peaches becomes the highlight of the day when layered over sponge cake, drizzled with syrup, and topped with a dollop of whipped cream. Even powdered mashed potatoes, which sound like a punishment in some kitchens, can be turned into a creamy, comforting mound with the right balance of butter, milk powder, and seasoning, the kind of thing that makes you go back for seconds. This is where the true artistry of rig cooking comes through. Out here, there's no, we can't make that. There's only, how do we make it with what we've got? The chefs become part engineer, part psychologist, part problem solver. Someone strolls into the galley on a break and half-jokingly says they'd kill for a plate of nachos. 10 minutes later, the kitchen crew has raided the pantry for tortilla chips from the last supply drop, melted down a mountain of processed cheese, and fished out a jar of jalapenos. The craving is satisfied, morale gets a boost, and the story will be told for days. Pizza is another offshore favorite. If the kitchen has a little extra time between shifts, they'll roll out dough from scratch, ladle on canned tomato sauce, sprinkle frozen mozzarella, and get creative with toppings pepperoni if supplies allow, or maybe chopped ham, pineapple, and onions if they're improvising. No one complains. On an oil rig, a hot slice of pizza, no matter how it's made, tastes like a gift. But the cooking out here isn't just about food, it's about people. Feeding stomachs is easy. Feeding moods is harder. And when you've got a crew that's been battling high winds, heavy lifts, and 12-hour shifts, you can almost feel the atmosphere shift when fatigue starts creeping in. That's when the kitchen pulls out the big guns. Steak night with baked potatoes, BBQ ribs slow-cooked until the meat falls off the bone, or a dessert buffet stacked with pies, cakes, and trays of brownies. The galley transforms into a place of celebration, and for a little while, no one's thinking about the waves pounding against the hull or the weeks left before they see home again. It's also when you see the crew come alive in a way that has nothing to do with the food itself. People linger at the tables a little longer. The jokes get louder. The lines at the coffee machine turn into mini conversations. That's the unspoken role of a rig chef to keep morale steady, to create those moments where the crew remembers they're not just surviving out here, they're living. Step inside an oil rig galley, and the first thing that hits you isn't the size, it's the smell. Fresh coffee brewing in industrial urns, bacon sizzling on the griddle, maybe a hint of garlic from last night's dinner still lingering in the air. But once you look around, you realize just how compact the place is. This isn't some sprawling, open kitchen like you'd find in a fancy hotel. It's more like a submarine version of a restaurant. Kitchen tight, efficient, and packed with gear. Every inch of space has a purpose. You'll see double-stack convection ovens wedged into a corner, churning out trays of bread rolls or roasting chicken for the next meal. Heavy-duty mixers the size of small jet engines sit ready for batches of dough or cake batter. Large steam kettles bubble away with soup or stew, each one big enough to feed 50 people at a time. Along the wall, fryers and flat-top griddles sit side by side, hot and ready from dawn until well past midnight. Under the counters, pull-out drawers hide away bulk ingredients. Overhead racks hold spices, ladles, and pans in perfect reach. And then there's storage, a galley's hidden lifeline. Walk-in freezers keep meat, fish, and frozen veggies stacked high in crates, while coolers hold everything from milk and butter to trays of salad greens. Dry storage rooms are crammed with bags of rice, boxes of pasta, cases of canned goods, and coffee. Always coffee. Out here, if you run out of caffeine, you're asking for trouble. Everything in the galley is built with one fact in mind. This is a kitchen that moves. The whole rig hums, vibrates, and sometimes sways with the ocean's mood. Equipment is bolted to the floor or fixed into heavy steel frames. Pots and pans live in racks that lock shut. Drawers have built-in catches so they don't fling open during a swell. Even the cutting boards have rubber grips or clamps to keep them steady. If you've ever tried chopping onions while the floor shifts under you, you know why this matters. The dining area, called the mess hall, is a world of its own. Long rows of sturdy tables and bolted-down chairs fill the space, ready to hold 20, 30, even 40 hungry people at a time. During meal times, it's alive with chatter, clinking cutlery, and the sound of boots scraping the floor as crews cycle in and out. But the mess hall isn't just for eating. Between meals, it transforms into a multi-purpose room. One day, it might host a safety briefing, with crew members gathered around to hear the latest updates. Another day, it's a training room, with charts spread out and a whiteboard covered in diagrams. On slow nights, and there aren't many, it might even turn into a makeshift movie theater, with someone hanging a bedsheet on the wall and hooking up a laptop to a projector. Because of that, the galley staff doesn't just clean, they reset. After breakfast, they wipe down every surface, push chairs back in line, mop the floors, and make sure the coffee stations are full again. By the time lunch rolls around, it's spotless, like breakfast never happened. The turnover has to be fast. Out here, the mess hall can't ever be closed. Someone's always coming off shift, hungry, tired, and looking for a place to sit for 5 minutes before heading to bed. Here's the thing, most oil rig chefs didn't grow up saying, one day, I'm going to cook in the middle of the ocean for a crew of roughnecks and engineers. For most of them, this career wasn't the end goal they had in mind. It was a twist in the road. Many started out in busy city restaurants, hotel kitchens, or catering companies. Some cut their teeth in the military, where they learned the discipline, speed, and precision that offshore work demands. A few went through specialized offshore catering training, but for most, the ocean wasn't calling, opportunity was. What unites them now isn't where they came from, but how they've adapted. Offshore life is not for everyone. The pay might be good, but you're trading weeks of your life away from family and friends, working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, with little break from the hum and rumble of the rig. For a chef, that means you're on your feet for hours in a kitchen that's always in motion, sometimes subtly swaying, sometimes jerking hard when a wave hits just right. And all the while, there's the constant buzz of machinery, the metallic clank of equipment, and the smell of oil and salt hanging faintly in the air. But here's the part that keeps many of them going. On a rig, mealtimes aren't just about eating. They're about sanity. They're a pause button in a world where the work never really stops. When the crew files into the mess hall, they're not just looking for food, they're looking for a breather, a place to laugh with their crewmates, swap stories, and momentarily forget the miles of steel and ocean that surround them. A good meal can change the temperature of the whole day. After a grueling shift in harsh weather, when your body aches and your face is windburned, sitting down to a plate of hot, perfectly seasoned food is more than just nourishment, it's relief. And that's where rig chefs take pride. They're not just serving calories, they're serving comfort, familiarity, and a little piece of home in the middle of nowhere. They know the power of a warm bowl of soup on a cold night, or the way a slice of fresh-baked pie can lift a tired crew's mood. In a place where the work is relentless and the environment is unforgiving, the galley can feel like the safest, most human spot on the rig. Here's the thing, most oil rig chefs didn't grow up thinking, one day I'm going to cook in the middle of the ocean for a crew of roughnecks, engineers, and mechanics who spend their days wrestling with steel and sea. For a lot of them, this career was never even on the radar. It wasn't part of some grand plan. It was a curveball life threw at them. Many started out flipping skillets in busy city restaurants, sweating over grills in hotel kitchens, or running catering gigs, where you had to feed a wedding party of 200 without a single guest, realizing the roast was almost overcooked. Some came from the military, already hardened to the long hours and disciplined, the kind of folks who could turn out 300 plates before sunrise without blinking. A smaller group trained specifically for offshore catering. But for most, it wasn't the romance of the sea that pulled them in. It was the promise of opportunity, and maybe a paycheck that could keep the bills at bay. What bonds them now isn't where they came from, but the fact that they've adapted to a lifestyle that chews some people up and spits them right back to shore. Offshore life isn't for everyone. The money can be great, sure enough to make you think twice before quitting, but you're trading weeks of your life in exchange. Weeks away from your kids, your spouse, your friends, weeks where you miss birthdays, miss Saturday morning coffee in your kitchen, miss being able to just step outside and breathe in something other than salt air and diesel. The work schedule is brutal. 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, and no weekend in sight. For a chef, that's hours on your feet in a kitchen that's always alive with movement. Sometimes it's a gentle sway you barely notice, like the whole place is breathing. Other times, it's a sharp jolt that makes you grab the counter because a wave decided to remind you just how small your floating home really is. The kitchen soundtrack is its own thing. The low, steady hum of the generators, the occasional metallic clank from machinery echoing through the walls, the hiss and sizzle from fryers and griddles. And beneath it all, there's that faint smell you can't quite escape, a mix of salt water, oil, and steel. After a while, you stop noticing it. It becomes part of the air you live in. But for all the fatigue, there's something about the galley that makes it one of the most important spots on the whole rig. Out here, mealtimes aren't just about filling plates. They're about pressing pause on the grind. They're a reset button in a place where work blurs into work, and days can feel endless. When the crew steps into the mess hall, they're not just hungry for food, they're hungry for a break. They want to sit, to talk, to joke around, to remember for a moment that they're more than just their job title. A good meal can shift the entire mood on board. Picture a crew coming in after a shift spent in bitter wind and needle-sharp rain. Their jackets soaked, their faces raw from the cold. They walk into the galley, smell fresh bread, or hear the thump of a ladle into a steaming pot of chili, and suddenly, the day feels survivable again. That's the power a rig chef has, turning exhaustion into relief, turning homesickness into comfort. They're not just handing out calories, they're handing out moments of peace. It's the little things, a warm bowl of soup on a night when the temperature drops, a perfectly seared steak on payday, or a surprise dessert like apple crumble that smells like someone's grandmother baked it just for you. These moments matter more than people on shore might ever understand. In a place where the ocean is your neighbor in every direction and the work never lets up, the galley becomes the heart of the rig, a place where you can feel human again, even if just for a few bites. Storage on a rig is a little like Tetris. Every square inch counts. The walk-in freezers are stocked floor to ceiling with meat, seafood, vegetables, and bread. Dry storage holds everything from sacks of flour and sugar to boxes of cereal and cans of beans. Perishables go into large refrigerated rooms, and everything has to be labeled and organized, so it's easy to find when the rush is on. Some ingredients are stored in unexpected places under counters, in rolling bins, even in secure spaces outside the main kitchen. It's all about using every available bit of room. And just like on submarines, rotation is key. First in, first out. Wasting food isn't just expensive, it can mess up the entire supply plan. Offshore catering has come a long way from the days when meals were mostly tinned goods and whatever fresh produce could survive the trip out. Today's rigs are equipped with high-performance kitchen gear designed to handle the brutal demands of cooking for hundreds of people in a non-stop cycle. Modern ovens and grills cook faster while using less energy. Heavy-duty mixers and slicers can process massive quantities without wearing out, and industrial dishwashers keep the mess hall flowing smoothly without slowing service. Everything is built to be durable, easy to clean, and resistant to the constant vibration and salt-heavy air that would destroy normal kitchen equipment in no time. Food preservation has also seen big upgrades. Vacuum-sealed packaging keeps meat and produce fresher for longer, while blast chillers rapidly bring cooked food down to safe storage temperatures, preventing spoilage and keeping flavors intact. This technology means a chef can roast a huge batch of meat, chill it in minutes, and reheat it later without losing taste or texture, a lifesaver when feeding a rotating crew around the clock. Some rigs are even taking innovation to the next level. A few have introduced small hydroponic setups to grow fresh herbs, lettuce, and other greens right there on the platform. Tiny green oases surrounded by endless blue water. It's not enough to feed the whole crew, but it adds a boost of freshness to meals that's hard to get offshore. Other rigs are investing in advanced menu planning and inventory software, allowing chefs to track supplies in real time, forecast shortages before they happen, and reduce waste down to the smallest scrap. At the heart of all these changes is a single, unwavering goal: to keep the crew well-fed, healthy, and happy, no matter how long they're offshore. Because out here, a good meal isn't just about taste, it's about energy, morale, and keeping the human engine of the rig running strong day after day. Cooking on an oil rig is part art, part science, and part sheer endurance test. It's about stretching every resource to its fullest potential, planning menus and supply usage weeks, sometimes months in advance, and keeping a busy galley humming along without interruption. Out here, there's no corner store or last-minute grocery run if you run out of onions or milk. Every ingredient on board has to be accounted for, stored properly, and used wisely, because when the supply boat leaves, you're on your own until it comes back. The next time you bite into a hot meal, take a moment to imagine the chefs working hundreds of miles offshore, surrounded by nothing but open ocean, turning crates of frozen chicken, sacks of potatoes, and pallets of canned goods into thousands of meals every single week. They do it in kitchens that never truly sleep, for crews who work around the clock in one of the most physically and mentally demanding industries on Earth. And they do it knowing that the food they prepare doesn't just fill stomachs, it keeps spirits up, fuels long shifts, and helps everyone push through the toughest days. Out here, a good meal isn't just dinner. It's morale wrapped in steam rising from a plate. It's comfort served in a bowl after a brutal shift in high winds and heavy seas. It's the familiar taste that reminds you of home when you're thousands of miles away from it. In many ways, the galley is more than a kitchen. It's the heart of the rig, and the chefs are the ones keeping it beating.